Welcome everyone to the latest Speak Out podcast from Aves Mental Health, formerly known as Global Mental Health Peer Network. I'm Karli Montague-Cardoso, the current chair of the European region of the network. This podcast is about the multifaceted power of peers and the ripple effects of peer networks, which reach far beyond the network members themselves. And in this podcast, I'm going to be joined by representatives across all of our regions to speak with me about their experiences within the network. These global perspectives and accounts will hopefully help to reflect the irreplaceable yet underappreciated value of lived experience peer networks, such as Aves Mental Health. So peer support, as we know, and peer empowerment impacts us at both individual levels and at community and societal levels. And one very much feeds into the other and they feed off each other. So I'd like to start with Živilė Valuckienė, who is based in Lithuania, and Karli Mabia from Kenya, to learn a little bit more about that individual aspect of being part of a peer network. So I'd like to ask you both, I'll start off with Živilė and then Connie, just to ask how the networks helped you both professionally and personally. So why is it that you joined Aves Mental Health in the first place? What were you kind of hoping to get from joining a global peer network?
Thank you, Karli, for your introduction. From my perspective, joining Global Mental Health Peer Network, Aves Mental Health, felt like a natural extension of both my professional lived experience and my professional identity. Working as a medical doctor, and also having my own journey with mental health, I often felt that there was a gap between clinical understanding and lived experience. I joined the network because I wanted to be part of a community where those two worlds come together meaningfully. Personally, I hoped for a space where peers across different countries and cultures not only understand mental health struggles, but actively transform them into strength and advocacy. I wanted connection, validation, and the sense of belonging that comes from knowing you are not alone in your mission. Professionally, I was hoping to grow. I wanted to understand how global peer networks operate, how advocacy is shaped in different regions, and how I could strengthen my own voice and the voice of peers in my country. I also hope the network would give me opportunities to collaborate internationally, share perspectives from Europe, and learn how to make my work on advocacy more empathetic, inclusive, and impactful. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, so a lot of different reasons there, and it just kind of demonstrates how one peer network can have so many benefits. It's just, as I said at the beginning, it's multifaceted, isn't it? And it's so versatile how it can be beneficial to people. Just moving over to Connie now, why is it that you joined the network? And was it like professional or personal reasons or both?
Thank you so much, Karli, for your question. To hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, thank you. So I joined the peer network I think last year. This is my second year here at Aves Mental Health. I was hoping to join this peer network because I really wanted to connect with people who truly understand the lived realities of mental health. And basically not just from textbooks or from policy spaces, but from personal experiences. I was looking for a community where my story, my voice, and my insights could matter, and where I could also learn from others who are working similar paths across different countries and contexts. Secondly, I really wanted to grow as well. Being part of this global network felt like a chance to develop my advocacy skills, expand my perspective, gain exposure to new ideas, research, and ways of working. I knew that engaging with peers from diverse backgrounds would challenge me, inspire me, and help me become a stronger mental health advocate. And I think when I was joining Aves Mental Health, formerly known as GMPHN, I was not confident enough to be able to share my lived experience story, or basically just to admit that I was a person with lived experience because of the internalized stigma that came up with the whole aspect. Joining this network has been so beneficial to me because most importantly, I was able to grow my voice and to be so confident, especially on the matter of decolonization of mental health or mental health research, which is a topic that I was able to discuss on my symposium. And I think that is one thing that I feel really proud of after joining the network. And at a deeper level, I was really looking for belonging, a place where lived experience is respected, valued, and centered. I really wanted to be part of something bigger than myself, a whole collective movement that is pushing for more inclusive and equitable mental health systems. Not like the lived experience people normally just tick in boxes or they talk about in different spaces, but a place where when we talk about lived experience, it's a whole community where we are able to understand what exactly that is from our personal experiences, from our own reflections. I really wanted to be part of this community.
Thank you. You both obviously had a variety of reasons for joining, and you've both mentioned the word connection. And I think it's interesting because regardless of why we join the network or networks like this, I think what we eventually experience ends up being very similar. So when I joined the network, I didn't know why I was joining it. I met Charlene through my day job, and I just knew I wanted to be part of the network, but I didn't quite understand why. And it's only once I then became part of the network and started taking part in things that I realized I was looking for something that was missing, and that was very much connection. And I think it's really amazing that peer networks such as this, they kind of bring everyone together. And whilst they do have professional and personal benefits, which vary from person to person, everyone mentions that connection. And that's something you cannot get from, like mental health care systems across the globe, from lectures. It all only comes from networks like this of like-minded people. So I think as my journey into this network progressed, I realized that, that's what I needed out of it. So how did that experience kind of take shape for you? So once you joined the network, you had an idea about what you'd like to get out of it, but did it meet your expectations? Were there any surprises for you? I'll start again with Živilė.
Thank you again. My experience has not only met my expectations, in many ways it has exceeded them. What surprised me the most was how quickly the sense of community developed, even though we are all spread across the world. The emotional closeness, trust, and openness that emerges in our conversations is something I feel and enjoy the most. Another pleasant surprise was how supportive and empowering the network is. You don't just join as a passive member. You are encouraged to contribute, to lead, and to shape discussions. I didn't anticipate how much this would help me grow personally, helping me feel more confident and grounded in sharing my lived experience in professional contexts. I was also genuinely inspired by the diversity within the group. Hearing how peers from different regions handle stigma, cultural expectations, and systemic challenges made me realize how innovative and resilient people can be. It shifted my perspective globally. So yes, the experience has been enriching, affirming, and surprisingly uplifting in ways I didn't even expect.
Thank you. I totally agree with that. It definitely, well, I just said I didn't know why I joined it, so I didn't have any expectations. But, anything I could have imagined even early on being part of the network, it certainly surpassed that. And as you said, you don't join this network being passive. You get involved, you want to be involved, you're comfortable being involved. It's really great how it kind of enriches your life. So Connie, what was your experience once you'd joined the network? Was there anything different to what you expected, or better, worse?
Thank you. I think I'm just gonna repeat exactly what Živilė said. I think joining the network has really, it definitely exceeded my expectations. I think one thing that really amazes me about the network is the commitment to genuine lived experience integration, not as a checkbox, but as a core design principle. When we were joining the network, I don't think I knew so much about as compared to what I knew right now. It was amazing with how we were able to grow in the span of the first year. We had amazing mentorships. We had the best workshops. I think the first 2 months of us joining, we had an amazing workshop that was moderated by Path Sharma. And I think that was the workshop that really gave me the confidence to be able to want to have even many more workshops. I think it's also the way the network really empowers people that was pretty great. There's space for you to write position statements, to become leaders for specific regions. There's space for you to get to know other people as well and to interact with them and form a whole community. You could get to work on projects with people who are in different regions as long as you're in the network. And that was an amazing thing that I really, really, really loved. I think one thing that I'd really like to add was the opportunities that were being offered by the network. We were able to be part of a Welcome Funded project that we were working in partnership with Sangath. And when we were being selected for the project, it didn't have like so many things that were required from us. As long as we were persons with lived experience, that was enough. And we were able to grow from this consultancy. We were able to learn so much and share our voices and not feel like we were really judged. Most importantly, I think one thing that I really loved about the network was the sense of belonging and the sense of support, the shared purpose, the collective growth that has really been grounding. When we met during the summit, last week, yes, it was last week. I think for a hot minute, it was very emotional because we were getting to meet people that we have been working different time zones across screens, and finally we were getting to meet each other and sharing what exactly we have been working on. And then the question that we were asking each other is, how can we continue working together? Even past knowing each other at the summit, how can we grow our collaborations? What exactly can we be working on in our countries? How can we make sure that our voices are heard and we feel respected and we feel valued? So definitely the network exceeded my expectations. There was always that room for growth. There was always someone who was challenging you to be the best version of yourself. And I think when I was preparing my presentation and Sandra was taking us through what we have been working on the past 2 years, it was a moment of growth, or you feel so great what you have been doing, because you started when you didn't have so much belief in yourself, and then you meet people who are like-minded, and most importantly, people who are daring to challenge the systems, and you feel like, yeah, we can now do this. We can now build a space where we feel respected and valued. So I can definitely say that the movement, definitely the organization exceeded my expectations.
Thank you, Connie. Yeah, the summit, in my job, I have to go to a lot of conferences. When I can't go to a conference, I say, oh, I'm so sorry I couldn't be there, but I don't mean it. I don't care. But this particular conference, not being able to go, I was genuinely upset. It's like the first conference that I've missed where I was like, damn it. So thank you both. I love these answers so much. It's always incredible to hear how multifaceted the individual benefits are and how two-way the growth is. I can't speak for other networks because I'm not part of other similar peer networks, but at Aves Mental Health, it's very much a two-way relationship. We're learning from each other, we're supporting each other, we're all growing together. And I'll tell you something else as well. I think joining this network made me trust that there are good people in the world again, genuinely good people, not performatively good people. And that's something that definitely has won me over, is the authenticity of the network, and that's not something that could be said for a lot of similar networks and organizations. So thank you so much both for sharing kind of your individual journeys with the network. As I mentioned, we don't just see benefits of peer support at an individual level, we see it across communities and societies as well. So I'd like to move on now to three other members of the network to learn about their perspectives on how peer networks have an impact across the globe. So joining Živilė, Connie and I, we also have Elsa Berk from South Africa, Isaac Lara from the US, and Rita Puri from Nepal. So I'd like to ask all three of you the same two questions, if I may, because I think it's really interesting to compare and contrast your answers. So starting off with Elsa, please, from your experience, how do peer networks shape global mental health? So why is it you think that's so critical for tackling the mental health crisis?
So I believe that lived experience is such an area where we are not just completely ignored or unheard. I feel like it's really so important, and I see it all the time in the work that I also do around the fact that we have to do a massive reshape of how the world sees mental health. And I really feel like those narratives need to come from people that have experienced mental health challenges themselves. And I think that that's really the shift, because there is still a huge part of the stigma is part of the medical system that is very top-down approach. So for me, a huge part of the peer network has been about learning how to have my voice and how to be an authoritarian myself as to how I feel and think and see my mental health. Because for an unbelievably long time, I gave my power away to experts in the medical field. And I'm not anti the medical field, but it's just experts in the medical field that were diagnosing me and boxing me, which I do feel has a time and a place, but I find myself getting stuck in those boxes and not being able to identify who I really was as a person. And I think that's where lived experience is huge, in the sense that it is not just about how you feel and think, but it also takes into consideration cultural aspects, generational trauma, all of those things that play a part in how you actually, struggle. So for me, that's been a critical part of how we can tackle the mental health crisis, is by involving individuals more in spaces in the medical field, with people with lived experience.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a really important point, actually, is, people with lived experience having the opportunity to inform clinical practice and diagnosis, because so many times I hear people say they've been put in a box, and more often than not, they're put in the wrong box. Or the boxes don't really have separate borders. So I think it's really important. And as you say, that cultural aspect is something we can't get from a clinical model. So thank you. Moving on to Isaac, how do you see peer networks tackling the mental health crisis globally?
Yeah, thank you, Karli, for that question. I think that um, first and foremost, speaking from my own experience as a young person and also a first generation college graduate, I can say that for myself, peer networks such as Aves Mental Health has definitely been formative, both for my early career and also just my own recovery journey. I think that for myself, and I know many other young people, we often are navigating this complex situation where we go from, especially if we come from a community where mental health is especially stigmatized, moving from a space where it's never talked about to suddenly it becomes, in a way, a brand for our career. I know that's something that I struggled to navigate and grappled with a lot, especially in my first year out of college. And the network was the space for me to kind of really explore that and really also unlearn a lot of internalized cultural stigma that I hadn't realized that I had still internalized. And I think that that's why networks such as ours are so important for tackling the crisis. Like Elsa mentioned, it also enables people with experience to engage in traditionally exclusive institutions like the medical industry area. For me personally, it's been a way for me to leverage my experience in research and also um, ensure that my research is not just in a ivory tower in academia, but really reaching communities directly. I think the other thing, and what I found the deepest value in networks such as this one, is it also facilitates connection and really building coalitions across different regions of the globe. I feel like I've met so many advocates, including people in this space here right now, who I don't think I would have otherwise met. And then I think the other thing, in addition to just different regional connections, is it also has a really great job at building intergenerational allyship. I feel like this is the only space I've ever been in where I've been comfortable collaborating with people who are 2 or maybe even 3 times as old as me. And it doesn't feel like there's some sort of hierarchy that's oftentimes present in other spaces where older individuals do feel like they have some sense of authority over me. So I feel like that's why peer networks like this one are absolutely critical in addressing the crisis.
Thank you. Yeah, I've noticed that actually in this kind of space, in this peer network, there is no hierarchy that is associated with age, with culture, with occupation. And I have to say, like, I have been so blown away by the younger people in this network because when I was your age, I think I'm probably double your age. When I was your age, there's no way I could, speak how you guys speak, how openly and how bravely you speak. I think it's amazing. And I also think it's really interesting what you said right at the beginning, about kind of breaking down those barriers to be able to talk about your mental health. Because in certain parts of the world, certainly where I'm based and the culture that I'm in, it's always just assumed that younger people have an easier time talking about mental health. That's kind of a blanket perception. And oh, it's the older people that struggle. And in many communities, that is true. But of course, that's not completely true across communities. So I think you expressed really well how, young people in certain communities really do struggle with stigma or with, stigma that other people, the way other people perceive them as well. I think it's super interesting. And of course, that connection you speak about is so important as well. So thank you. And last but not least for this question, Rita, how do you see peer networks helping mental health globally?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Carol, for that question. So just reflecting to the sharing that 2 other speakers did just before me, and just adding to it, like whenever we think about mental health, right, or we feel low, need support, or even looking for some resources for our advocacy, the first question that often comes to my mind is that who do I reach out, right? And most of the time, the answers is always our peers or our peer network. And this peer circle is one of the, I would say, most powerful space that I have been so far. And this network for me is a community of incredible people from diverse background, from their diverse work, different aspect of mental health, supporting in each other's in different ways possible. And I still very remember the first conversation within our peer network was where from different part of the world, they openly shared their mental health journeys, their difficult moment. And at the first time, I was very surprised. And within seconds, I felt very safe enough to share my own story, to be vulnerable and to not judge each other. And in just those 10 minutes of introduction was very eye-opening to me and made me realize that how important is actually the peer networks. And sometimes healing can just start, from being heard, being mindful of each other's realities and being present. And since then, I have been very vocal about my own mental health, taking and empowering other young people to create similar spaces where we can just share, discuss, be present, and support each other in different ways possible. And in this peer network, I also see that we encourage each others to, seek help, remind each other that we are not alone. And especially in today's moment, like there are a lot of things happening around the world, right? From recently in our country, there were a lot of protests, there were a lot of unpredicted things happening on, and it was impacting me as well as other citizens a lot. And that time, we couldn't sleep for days. It was very draining. We were worried about our future, anxious about our future. But the people in this peer network, kept checking in. They were asking if I'm okay. They were sending me a lot of good, hopeful messages, sending me songs to listen during that time. And during that hard time where you feel uh, the world around you is shrinking and you just question each and every moment, but that the support made me feel like, the rays of light coming towards me and in the dark time. So I would say that that's why this peer network has been really important for me and is playing a really important role in tackling the global mental health crisis in different forms, as other speakers also share. And a lot of time, being a young person and being in a crisis setting, we may not always know about how to navigate our health systems or to access services, but we remember that we have each other. Okay, we have a peer network, right? So being this part of the peer network feels like a family and reminds that even in the crisis, we still find connection, solidarity, and healing. Yeah.
Thank you. So, I mean, between the three answers that you gave, I think it's come through really strongly that the way in which peer networks can help mental health globally is it's very much multifaceted. It educates, so it educates the medical field and diagnoses. It educates people on stereotypes and breaking down stigma, but it also is very much supportive. And that's not only helping us, as you explained, Rita, like in the moment, but that's empowering you to then go on and help other people in your communities and across the world and other people within the network. And then it's ripple effects that kind of just magnify. So I think that's a really excellent summary of how peer networks, such as Aves Mental Health, can help well-being across the world. So I know we're all biased because we're all part of the network and we love it, but I think we can brag about how great the network is. And I think we've all been involved in different networks or different lived experience groups in some capacity, but I think we all recognise how well Aves Mental Health works as a peer network. So what do you think the network does well that other networks could learn from, or other similar organizations could learn from, Elsa?
So I think one of the things is collaboration. And I think that's something that's worked unbelievably well, is the fact that, I mean, just this podcast today, all of us being able to get together and talk about our experiences and what's worked for us and the changes that have been made. I mean, like I said, one of the biggest things has for me been being able to learn to have my voice. And you can only, like speaking for myself, learn to have a voice if you feel safe. And there's been really amazing relationships that I've made in this space due to the ability to be able to be on projects where you can collaborate with individuals that are just as open-minded as you are around empowering individuals with lived experience around human rights, around dignity. So those, I think, just the level of respect for lived experience with the collaboration and really embracing individualization and knowing that even though we are on this platform and we are part of the network, I believe that the individuals that I interact with, we have the same vision, and yeah, I think and respect the fact that we are different but the same, which has been a really life-changing experience for me.
Yeah, 100%. I think that respect and that safety that the network is able to cultivate is, for me, it's unparalleled. Absolutely. Any other network, organization, role, anything else I've been in, I totally agree with you. That safety and respect, I've never experienced something as powerful as that within this network. What would you say, Isaac, that other networks or organizations could learn from Aves mental health?
Yeah, I think that Elsa described it very beautifully, and I think that kind of building off of that authenticity and reception to input from members of the network. One particular example that comes to mind that I remember when I was in person and was talking with some of the full-time staff for the network, was talking about how not just that feedback is received so well, but also how quickly it's responded to. A great example of this is I remember shortly after I joined the network, we and myself and a few other young people within the network were talking about the lack of youth representation across the different regions of the network, as well as certain regions that seem to have less representation. And then shortly after, the network created the Youth Agents for Change unit, which is a very direct and clear testament of, okay, our young members have stated we need more young people. Let's dedicate an entire unit to it, and let's prioritize this particular underrepresented age group in future recruitment efforts, which they have done over the last year as well. And with particularly the Youth Agents for Change unit, it's very quickly become a very unique and special space for us as young people to voice our own concerns in regards to just the broader global mental health crisis. And secondly, it's been a wonderful place for a lot of us to gather and really bring our dreams to life. I was very impressed and kind of almost like dumbfounded the way that this group worked so effectively. I think one of our first initiatives was literally an entire virtual conference that was hosted, facilitated, and planned over the course of only a few short months, which any conference, regardless if it's in person or virtual, takes so much time, effort, etc. But I think that's something the network does really well. Again, is one, listening to feedback, no matter how harsh or how critical, two, ensuring that it's responded to effectively, accurately, and quickly. And then three, at least in regards to our feedback, really helping cultivate leadership among young people, especially those who may not have as much leadership experience.
Thank you. Yeah, totally. I like you. I've been also blown away with how responsive the network is, how quickly things are acted on, how seriously perspectives are taken. Because anywhere else you go, there's always excuses, right? And a lot of them are genuine excuses, the resources and red tape and all this. But when you want to do something, you'll find a way to do something. And I think this network is really good at doing that and acting on it so that it doesn't lose the momentum and it doesn't disempower its members. So I think that is something it does really well. And Rita, what do you think the network does well?
For me, something I deeply appreciate about our network is that its approach to global mental health, it's an holistic way. It doesn't just focus on one aspect, it builds our capacity, support us in transforming our ideas into actions, encouraging different forms of engagement with the stakeholders, and also ensures that every members in the network grows both personally and professionally. And this holistic approach is something many others can learn from as well. And the another very powerful practice that I have seen and been part of this network is that our networks create a space for each member's skill to shine, right? So instead of just highlighting a few voices, it ensures that our talent, our expertise, or our lived experiences get a spotlight in a different way. And even more importantly, those skills are shared across the network, and we just learn from each other's and being there for each other. And many times, a lot of network or organization still rely solely on the external resources. But our network reminds us that some of the richest resources already exist within us, and that is one of the best thing that I really appreciate about our network. And just adding to the other speakers, for me also the another unique strength is how our network values lived experience. This is still rare to find, specifically in our region, I will say. And here our personal journeys are not seen as a weakness, they are recognized as a powerful tool for advocacy and change. And when people connect through these authentic and empowering stories, it builds a bond that goes beyond the work. It creates a sense of belongingness, of feeling of that I am seen, I am heard, and I matter. And finally, our network is very action oriented because it doesn't just stops at conversations, right? Our network pushes us to, okay, you have that idea, let's do it. The mentors, support you a lot, and even it's a different forms of work that we do. And for me, as being a young person, it has really empowered me to be a leader in a different way possible. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it goes back to that respect, doesn't it? It's respect for the expertise of everyone in the network. And as you said, that's something that isn't always done. There's always a select few people that call the shots or have the ideas, but it's very much shared. And I think the network does that really well. I'd also add that they're always very open to change. And, because times are changing very fast, and with new members coming in with new expertise, new experiences, new identities, I feel that even in the short time that I've been part of the network, you see it evolve with its members. That's something that very clearly happens, and I don't see that anywhere else. So I think there's a lot of things that Aves does really well that other networks could be paying attention to. So thank you for sharing your perspectives and experiences with me today. And it's always so insightful to hear everyone's views, and especially to learn about how everyone is and will continue to be helped by networks such as this. As I said earlier on, what really strikes me the most is the power of connection. That word connection has been coming up a lot today. And I think that singular thing has the biggest ripple effects, both personally and within across communities. That feeling of belonging, and of course that empowerment, which has come up a few times today as well. I think it teaches us that we all have a role to play. And for many of us, that's something that networks such as this really help to magnify. So thank you so much again to all of our guests today, Živilė, Connie, Elsa, Isaac, and Rita. I hope this podcast has demonstrated just how powerful peer networks are. And as we've clearly explained in our 2025 G20 Summit Position Statement, which we link to in the description below, there has to be a shift towards peer networks being prioritised and protected just as much as clinical mental health services. One cannot fulfill the function of the other. They have equal value, but they both bring something very different. They must complement each other, and they must learn from each other for us to really be able to protect the mental health of future generations and to be able to meet the needs of different communities across the world. And that is something that's yet to be achieved because we've yet to give peer networks the support they deserve. So we all very much hope that times are changing, and if not, we will keep pushing for that change. So thanks everyone for listening to the latest Speak Out podcast.